This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised. Good morning and welcome to the Sunrise Safari here on the western fringes of the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park in the northeast corner of South Africa. The low veld is what we call it, the lowlands. We've got Owen on camera. That's his thumb. We've got Lauren coming out soon. I'm not sure if we're going to be joined by andBeyond and Ngala further to the north of us. It is raining today, which means that, well, we have to be careful about wetting equipment and that sort of thing. So we'll see if we're joined by andBeyond and Ngala a little bit later. Please do send us your questions to the hashtag WildEarth. Otherwise, you can use the YouTube chat stream or the Twitch chat stream, and our very first animal is just in front of us as I welcome a school from Australia. Welcome, kids. Lovely to have you with us. I hope that your day is started off well. I mean, your day is coming to an end, I suppose. Oh, apparently there's even more than one school joining us from Australia. Well, welcome to you all. Send us your questions and comments. It'd be lovely to hear from you. All the way from Australia. You can hear the rain now, pitter-pattering down on the roof of this car. I had a very good start to the morning today. I had coffee and a chapati, freshly baked by Trishala in camp yesterday evening, so I'm feeling chipper and very pleased with the start so far. I'm not so pleased with the rain because it does make finding animals a little bit more difficult, but sometimes you get real lucky in the rain, and hopefully that will happen today. And I'm being told sternly in my ear by the final control room that Alex Wozniacki, whose name I've almost certainly got wrong, our Russian genius, in fact fried the chapatis and would like some recognition. Well done, Alex, well done. So this impala was tucked in there behind that log, and there's a very clever reason for that. If we zoom in on the impala, the reason for that is that that log faces perpendicular to the prevailing wind, and by lying in front of it he'll be keeping the worst of the breeze off him, and so while the rain will make him cold, it's really the wind that makes temperature regulation quite difficult. So he was lying behind that log probably in order to reduce the effects of the wind. Now, Lauren's plan was to go down towards where we had the lions yesterday, and she'll probably do that a little bit later, but she won't be able to get out just yet while the rain is like this. Amelia, you're in Australia, 8 years old, and wondering if we have any endangered species here. Yes, we do. That ain't one of them. That's the most common mammal that we find here. Well, one of the most common, and that is the impala. Endangered species here include the ground hornbill, which is an impressive bird that looks like a great big turkey with a chisel on its face. The African wild dog is endangered, and we get them from time to time. We saw some last night. Well, they did a little bit further north from where we are. So, yes, we do get a few endangered species. There are probably even a few butterflies and things that we don't even realize are endangered. And as you can hear, the rain is now getting heavier. We woke up at about 4 o'clock this morning to some horrendous rain clattering down on our roofs. Rosie, you're 6 years old and wondering why it's dark here in South Africa. Rosie, it's because it's a totally different time of the day. Can you believe it? So it's only 6 o'clock in the morning here, and I'm imagining it's probably about 2 in the afternoon there in Australia, plus minus, maybe 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And it's quite difficult to understand, but you know the world's round, right? The further to the east you happen to find yourself, the further you are in your day. That's just how it works, and you'll learn about that in geography a little bit later in your life, but all you need to remember is that different parts of the world have got different time zones depending on how far east or west they are of each other. Do you know what east and west are? I'm not sure if you would have done that at school yet. So it's very early in the morning, and that's why it's dark in South Africa. I'm just going to put on a little rain jacket on account of the fact that it is now raining. Yes, Nancy, I also find it hard to get out of bed while it's raining. You're going to hear a bit of noise now. Sorry about that. Microphone, which is in my hat, creating a problem. Oh, and you'll notice that the impala is disappearing. That's irritating of him, isn't it? As we try desperately to keep some content in the screen. There we go. I've got my rain cover on. I'm just going to go forward a little bit so that we can look at this impala, Sophia. There we go. Interestingly, Sophia, impalas don't have antlers at all. Those are not antlers, those are horns. Deers get antlers, and antlers fall off every year. And horns do not. Horns remain on the animal. So they don't have, we don't get deer in Africa, but for in the far north. And we get lots and lots of different antelope species. And all of them, either males and females, or just the males, will get horns. And they keep those horns. Some of them are long, and some of them are short. In the case of the duiker, they're only about sort of, 15 centimeters long on a really well-endowed duiker. And on a kudu, they're huge things. They can probably be about maybe a meter, 1.2 meters. So they get really big. I suppose we should probably try and start driving now, but we need to be careful not to get anything too wet. Alex, you're 13 in Australia and wondering about springbok and whether we have seen one on drive. Springbok do not occur in this part of the world. So they are the national animal of South Africa, but they don't occur in the low-veld region of South Africa. They only occur in the more westerly and southerly regions of South Africa. It's a really good question. So we would find them in the Kalahari Desert. We used to find them in multitudes, millions of them in the Karoo, and those are both semi-desert and desert areas of South Africa. Alright, we're going to try and move. We're just going to have to move very slowly in this relatively heavy rain, but we can keep on chatting. I might head down to where we had some lions. Chase, interestingly, animals don't have to do their exercises. And they don't have to do their exercises because their life is built around doing enough exercise for them to survive. So that impala will get up now and he'll go and he'll walk around a bit, and then he'll eat, and then he might meet some friends and do a little bit of running with them and playing or fighting or play fighting. And that's the exercise that he needs to do. And the reason that we as human beings have to make a real effort to do our exercises, and I'm glad that at age 7 you are aware of the need to do exercises. The reason is that, we don't do very much, do we? We sit a lot and we use our brains a lot, but that's not really helpful for our bodies. And so, unlike the animals which live out here in the wild and who have to go, when they go looking for food, they have to do it. I'm just going to try and get some water off the top of the roof. They have to move around, and so that's their exercise. We don't do that anymore. We used to when we lived in the bush, and then we didn't have to do exercises. But now, because we don't live in the bush, anymore. We have to do exercises. I'm going to drive slowly along and see what else we can find. Oh, there isn't something on that termite mound, is it? Or is it just a piece of termite mound? It's just a piece of termite mound. I think I've stopped at that piece of termite mound about 35 times over the last few years. So that's a termite mound, everybody, in which live all the termites. And I've got to tell you, in weather like this, it's not bad being a termite, because inside those mounds, the temperature is very warm. It's not too hot, it's not too cold. The humidity is just right. And so to be inside a little termite mound like that, provided you with the size of a termite and not a human being, I think it'd be a good, comfortable place to be. No, Kay, I didn't hear any animal noises overnight. I heard the sound of rain on the roof and the sound of the fan in my room going. And the reason we have the fan on is A, because it's hot, and B, because it masks the sound of the mosquitoes going around our ears. And what we'll just quickly show you here, remember I was telling you about how the impala was lying on the northwestern side of that log. If we look at the tree there, Ern, you can see here that the northwestern side of this tree is totally dry. And that's because the wind is coming from the southeast, so the rain is coming from the southeast. Isn't that clever? Good, on we go. Oh yes, and you will have seen a cage around the tree. Let me just go a little bit closer. Now that cage is there so that elephants hopefully do not destroy the tree. Now this is an old marula tree, and you can see the elephants have had a go at it there with their tusks. They've taken the bark off because they eat the bark, and so they've put some fencing around in the hopes that it'll save the tree. I think that personally, I'm not sure how effective it's going to be. I think if an elephant really wants to get at that tree, he'll snap off that fencing in about 10 seconds. But let's see. Hopefully it'll save the tree. It's not necessarily a bad thing if it doesn't, because trees deal with elephants out here. No, expat, the termite mounds do not get flooded in the rain normally. They are like cement, so they're like concrete. They are basically completely waterproof. I'm just going to empty the roof a little bit. It is full of water, most of which has landed on my back, naturally. Emily, it's not too cold where we are now. You're in Australia as well. It's 20 degrees Celsius right now, so that's not too cold. It just feels a little cooler because of the rain, but it doesn't feel cold at all. And it gets quite cold here. It'll drop down to around 10 degrees on some very cold winter's mornings. That's about as cold as it gets, which, you know, I know for many of you who have proper winter, that's really not cold at all. Now I'm just going to tell the final control that I will head towards the lions, but that as soon as Lauren manages to get out on the other vehicle, which has no roof, I'll extract myself from there. because it'll be nice for her to go and sit with them, because that car can't drive in too much rain. In fact, in any rain at all. Alright, seems to be holding out a little bit, so we can drive a little bit faster. Grace, that's a really good question, why that specific tree? I can't really answer it. It wasn't me that did it. I'm going past 3 or 4 marula trees now that don't have that sort of protection on them. I don't know. I think it's mainly just possibly an experiment to see if it works. Is the roof still attached? No. Now the roof has come detached. I'm afraid we're going to have to stop briefly. Hold on everybody, I just got to put the roof back in. Okay, Owen's going to have to jump out. We should probably find some bolts for this. Okay, mine's in. Yeah. Oh, now the front's out. Joy and rapture. 1, 2, 3. And that's in. There we go. Sorry about that, everybody. These are the trials of operating in the rain. Plug myself in again, turn around, jump in the car. There we go. Rain seems to be abating, which is quite nice. I'll say there is a pride of lions around here with cubs. I haven't seen any of the cubs of late, but I think that some of them are definitely on this reserve, and I've been looking them for about 3 days and I haven't managed to find them. We've been tracking them and they've been disappearing into areas that we just can't get into, so I think there are some cubs around. Maybe we'll be very lucky in this weather to find some baby lions. Kirsten, how many millimeters of rain did we have last night? Kirsten is in the final control room. She's the one feeding your questions to me. "24 millimeters. That's about what I would have thought we had. That's a lot of rain in this part of the world. That's about an inch for those of you operating in the imperial system. Almost exactly an inch. The rain is letting up a little bit, especially if we drive in this direction. So we'll drive a little bit quicker. See if we can get to... Oh dear. Roof out? Is it out? Many people saying that we need duct tape to get the roof in. No, that won't do it. I think we need a welding machine, I'm afraid. It's just... Okay, hang on, the other side's out. Can you do it? Do you want me to jump out? Yes. Sorry about this. Now it can be done. Okay, put yours in. You lined up. Okay, it's in. Right, I'm just going to have to drive a bit more carefully, I think. And then we should be alright. Otherwise the roof is going to fall on the top of Owen's head, and that will be a disaster. Here we go. Sounds like Ngala is thinking about going out. Ngala is 50 kilometers to the north of us. Andy, you're 6 years old, wondering how far away a lion's roar can be heard. I'd say about 5 kilometers for human beings. If it calls really loudly on a winter's night, you'll be able to hear it about 5 kilometers away. And for other lions, probably about 10 kilometers away, because their ears are better than ours. So that's quite far. I mean, 10 kilometers is a long way. James, my vehicle doesn't have a door so that I can get out of it easily. No other reason. It's just easier for me to get out of the car when there's no door. It's not unsafe at all. So it just made sense to take it off. You know, we're in and out of the car all the time. And it's irritating having to open a door and close it and open a door and close it. So that's why we don't have a door. Much better without. We're not too far from where the lions were yesterday. I'm afraid I didn't get that. Can you try again? Is the oh. Oh. No, Beatrice, our camp is not similar to the one that guests stay in. Our camp is much more kind of functional, so there's a bigger kitchen where we can cook stuff and store stuff, and you know, there's a dining area. We don't have a pool, but I mean, that's not, we don't expect to have a pool. So no, it's very different from where the guests stay. It's a much more kind of it's more sort of homely, if you like, and it's not, you know, it's not designed to have a lot of guests in it. It's a bit like a home versus a hotel. You know what I mean? But it's in the same area. It's just next to a guest camp called Vuyatela. Alright, so Lauren is coming down here as well, which is good news. The rain is abating sufficiently for that to happen. So I'll just go and check if there are any lions down in this area, and then Lauren will come down if there are and take over them, and we'll see if we can find those ones that I've been searching for the last 3 days. Or maybe we'll be lucky with a leopard or something like that. Leo is 11 in Australian, wondering where the name Olololo comes from. Olololo, for those of you who don't know, is the escarpment that runs along the west of the Masai Mara. Liam, I've forgotten where the name Olololo comes from actually. It's a Maasai word, or a Ma word. What does it mean? Mara means blotched or patchwork, but I don't remember what Olololo means actually. Sorry about that. That's up in East Africa, about 1,500 miles from where we are now. Now, are there any lions or hyenas around here? This is where we had them yesterday. There's a male lion drinking water there at that waterhole. Doesn't need to be at the waterhole today because he's just opened his mouth and look at the sky if he's thirsty. So they killed a wildebeest yesterday, and they were eating it inside the bushes here last night. Ooh, look what we've got. There's a vulture flying away, and a jackal. Now that tells me that these lions have probably moved away. I'm afraid all I got from that is Olololo means riffraff. There's the jackal. It means zigzag, apparently. Zigzag. So there is a black-backed jackal. Now, the black-backed jackal is a scavenger of sorts, and he'll be hoping to pick up some scraps from the lions, who were just off to the right-hand side of where we're sitting now. I see no fresh tracks, but that's not surprising because of the rain. So what I'm going to do is just drift forward and see if we can't pick up where the carcass was. So the carcass was just in... Oh, there's a lion. There are two lions. How's that, Owen?
Very good.
Now I'm going to start talking quietly because you can see that lion is staring at us now. That is a lion called Mohawk. And Mohawk is sometimes a little irritated with vehicles. And you can see he's very full of meat. And what he's doing is looking at vultures flying overhead. Caitlin, I don't think they like the rain at this time of the year. You know, there's enough water around, the grass is growing. I think that if it's a really hot day and it rains a bit in the afternoon, then they probably like the feeling of the rain cooling them down, but I think very quickly it becomes irritating for them. But, you know, they don't really have a choice. It's not like they can go inside or choose to be out of it, so I think it's much less irritating than it would be for human beings to be out caught in a rainstorm when it's cold. So he's eating a wildebeest, which the Pride killed sometime yesterday morning, and I don't know where the other two lionesses and one cub are. Alright, let's go back up now, or for the first time this morning, up to andBeyond Ngala, which is 30 kilometers to the north, where Nikki is waiting to say hello.
Good morning, everyone, on a beautiful rainy day. I'm Nikki here at andBeyond Ngala, and behind me with the camera is Marcel. So it is raining quite a bit, so we don't know how long we're going to be out if it continues like this. However, this morning there were some tracks of lions on top of a herd of buffalo. We're wanting to see if it's maybe that Pride with the two white lions in it, the Birmingham Pride, and see if we can find them this morning. Now, it's not too far from where we are now. It's just past the 10th cap, but as I said, we're hoping to see what the rain does this morning. If it does get a little bit harder, we might just go back and wait for it to clear up. If it plays along, hopefully we can find the lions in this rain. I can just imagine if we do find them, what a beautiful sighting. But you can see the roads are pretty wet. We had quite a bit of rain during the evening. I remember this morning I woke up at 10 to 4 and it was raining so hard, it actually woke me up. And you can still see in the distance, looks like there's more rain coming. Jane and Cheryl, you were asking if the animals mind the rain. Well, it depends. It depends on the area. Like, I just wanted to quickly stop and have a look at this herd of impala in the rain. Now, you'll see with some animals, if it rains quite a lot, they might move into a bit of shelter. But these impala, still nice in the open. It's not raining too hard, but they don't mind this. As soon as it rains too hard, they might look for a little bit of cover. But I can just imagine all the grass, nice and like full of moisture early in the morning. All right, but for now, we're going to carry on with our lion search and see what the rain does. Let's head across to James with those lions.
There we have got a hooded vulture. And as I was mentioning yesterday evening, possibly the second most blighted creature in the world. Because this animal, for those of you who don't know, its diet consists of eating lion scat, which is the most disgusting substance on planet Earth. Well, the second most disgusting. No, Summer, we definitely don't feed the animals. They have to find their own food. These lions had to find this wildebeest yesterday in amongst these bushes, and so they had to hunt him. And that was obviously a very traumatic time for the wildebeest, but the lions had to do it. And then this jackal, we don't feed him either. He's hoping for some scraps from the lion kill, so he'll just wait until the lions move off a bit, and then he'll jump in and steal a little piece and then run away again. He's much faster than the lions, but he's too afraid that if he gets caught by the lions he'll be in big trouble, so he's just going to wait until the lions move away. You can see he doesn't seem to mind the rain too much at all. He's just lying out in the open. Often the predators, or a lot of animals, will go and find a thick bush to lie underneath, and that tends to keep them a little bit drier than if they were out in the open like that, but obviously he doesn't mind too much. They're not like us, you know, who feel much greater extremes of cold and hot and need aircon and jerseys and rain jackets and that sort of stuff. They don't seem to mind too much. Let's go back to our lion. And you can see the other male behind there. His name is Blondie. And I don't know if he's just not eating or if he's eaten. Yeah, he's not eating. He's fast asleep. He's obviously had a lot to eat during the night.
Dark man there. That looks like a female there.
No, that's Blondie the male.
Yeah.
Same lion. Amelia, lions do mostly what the one behind there is doing. They do absolutely nothing for most of the day. Sometimes for 20 hours of every 24 they are asleep or lying on their backs doing absolutely nothing. So one might describe them as the laziest creatures out here in the wilderness. But they're allowed to be lazy because they're lions, and most of the predators do very little if they're not hunting or eating, and that's because they don't eat foods that are very rich in energy. So it's quite difficult for their bodies to manufacture energy. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but you know, their food makes them feel tired is all you need to remember. They only eat meat, they don't eat anything that helps them to move around a lot. And they don't need to move around a lot, so they rest. And rest is a great healer. They get injured when they hunt, and so when they rest, those injuries can heal. They get injured fighting with each other. And sleeping is a really good way of healing. As you know, when you feel sick, all you want to do is lie on your back. Yeah, no, I agree with you, Canadian. Canadian saying that Mohawk is probably not going to leave his kill until he absolutely has to. I think Canadian is correct. Mohawk the lion is not known as a great sharer. His mane's got a lot darker since I last saw him. It's most inconvenient for him to walk behind there. No, don't take it in there. Let's just have a little listen and see what we can hear. Unfortunately, I can't go any closer to these lions. Let me just try and reverse a bit. You got a shot. So this is sometimes what the predators do. They'll find a nice thick bush to hide underneath. Please excuse the pole, that's from the rain roof that we have on. And he's now lying under a great big thick bush. Rosie, the rain does sound nice, doesn't it? It sounds really peaceful. Very heavily. Its big fat tongue. It's looking around. Maybe those lionesses are close by.
This one right next to you.
See another one. Owen reckons there's a lioness lying next to the other lion. That's the male. That's Blondie. Okay, what I think we're going to do is just go for a little drive and see if we perhaps can't pick up the others. Well, I'll just answer this question first. Neil is wondering if we can taste meat. Neil, have you never eaten meat? You could definitely taste meat. Oh, can the lions taste meat? Yeah, they can, but they don't have many taste buds. So the complexities of what you're able to taste compared with what a lion's able to taste are a little bit like his ability to see versus your ability to see. We don't see nearly as well as they do, or hear nearly as well, but you taste many, many, many more flavors than he would be able to taste. So he can taste it, but, you know, it's not something, I don't think they worry too much about what something tastes like. They're prepared to eat the most disgusting, rotting meat. They don't care at all. Let's just nip forward again as he moves. Now he's gone down into the thick bush there. Okay, we're going to go for a little drive around here and just see if we can't pick up the rest of the pride. Maybe the two ladies and the cub. And just reverse slowly up the road for a few meters and see if they aren't lying under a bush close by. Because they could be. They'd be avoiding being around the male because he was very nasty last night. He was growling at them. He didn't want them to eat. With a little cub, they could easily be lying under a bush somewhere, very thick. Right, nothing obvious here. So I think we'll carry on There's a little dam up ahead. Sometimes lions like to go and concentrate around water, but I would find that a strange place for them to be today. Interesting question, and it's a question that is, if not asked, I think it's thought about very often. That poor jackal is not too afraid. He's actually more afraid of us than he is afraid of the lions. He was coming closer and then we came past. So I think he'll go back there. Venkat, no, it's not possible to hand raise a lion to be a vegetarian because the lion does not have the digestive tract capable of digesting meat, at least digesting vegetation. So with an omnivore like a human being, you can survive very happily on just vegetable or plant matter because your digestive tract is basically half carnivorous and half herbivorous. So you can survive very happily on only plant material. Also, we have a very varied diet. But it's not the same for an animal that is specifically designed to be a carnivore. Its digestive tract is much, much shorter. And so it would never be able to get enough nutrition from vegetables and that sort of thing. Fruits and nuts, because it just doesn't have the digestive system capable of digesting those sorts of things. And the same thing goes for a herbivore. You couldn't feed a herbivore meat and expect it to survive because its digestive tract just is not designed to take it. But with an omnivore, you can go either way. So a human being can survive eating entirely meat, provided they have enough fat with that meat. So you can survive entirely on animal products, or you can survive entirely on plant-based products. And that's because we have an omnivorous digestive system. And if you took a baboon, for example, baboon would be the same. They could survive just about exclusively on meat, or just about exclusively on vegetation. Obviously, the ideal is a sort of mix between the two for a baboon. Very little meat, but they would like to eat meat from time to time, even if it's just insects and things. It's good for them. Shan, I'd be very interested to know what happened. You saw a news article about somebody trying to raise a vegan cat. I'd be fascinated to know how well that cat is, A, and B, how long it would live. I suppose you could selectively breed cats until they could cope with eating entirely plant-based foods. It does sound a little bit cruel to do that to an animal that has evolved to eat meat. But, most dog foods, most over-the-counter dog foods, over-the-counter as if you need a prescription, most dog foods that you buy in a supermarket are plant-based. They are corn with a bit of sort of gravy mixed in and a couple of synthetic vitamins. But that's making kind of synthetic meat as opposed to making an animal genuinely herbivorous. No, Gremlins General, I couldn't really imagine a vegetarian T-Rex at all. I always laugh at that film Madagascar where, isn't it the lion that eventually starts eating fish, as if that's not meat? Imagine how long it took the storytellers to come up with that one. How are we going to make this lion a vegetarian yet still biologically plausible? At least they bothered to try and make it biologically plausible, unlike the creators of that other biological travesty, aka the Lion King. There is an impala. Butterfly, you say your cat used to love eating fruit and peas. That's interesting. I suspect it liked the fruit because of the sugar. I've never seen a lion pick up a marula fruit, which is odd, because we know that our pets do like sugary things. What's he looking at? It looked like a semi-alarm call there. Let's drift slowly down the road here, Owen, and see if he isn't staring at a leopard lying on a termite mound. I don't think he is. I think he'd be going a lot more ballistic if he was. Elizabeth and Edward in France. Bonjour. I think it's probably easier for them to hunt in weather like this because there's a lot of wind and the rain dulls, I think, the senses or the scent of animals, and so prey animals can't smell quite as well, they can't hear quite as well, and so it's easier for the predators to hunt. Now 24 millimeters of rain will have obliterated any animal tracks that there would have been come, say, 3 o'clock this morning. And so we're starting out afresh here, and any tracks we do find we can assume are relatively recent. Let's go up this way. At the moment, everyone, you're stuck just with me. Jackal? I don't know if leopards eat succulents. I suppose they might try. I mean, every so often leopards and lions eat grass, for sure. I've never seen a leopard or read about a leopard eating succulents, but I suppose they might try. The point is that I don't think they could survive exclusively on eating vegetation. I'm sure they could derive some value from, say, a plant like an avo, which has got good fats in it. It's got quite a lot of protein. But I don't think they'd survive exclusively on a diet of avocados and almonds. Maybe they could, but I don't think so. Certainly not at optimum health. No, Jessica, monkeys do not scavenge off lions, leopards or hyenas. Monkeys stay well clear of all of those animals. Baboons do, though. Baboons will sometimes scavenge off smaller predators. Leopards, maybe. Cheetah, definitely. Hyenas and lions, almost certainly not. I think we sometimes get a slightly false sense of how formidable hyenas are when we go and we sit with Ribbon at her den, and there she is, kind of gently feeding her cubs or looking as if butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. A hyena is a terrifying creature when it is on the hunt or having a fight, and second only to the lion out here in the predator hierarchy. So a baboon would think twice about taking on a hyena. Most things will think twice about taking on a hyena. A lioness, big lioness, will think twice about it, but she'd probably do it if she had to. Male lion, well, he wouldn't worry about it too much, but otherwise everything else will move out the way for a hyena. Spotted hyena, that is. Yes, Jean, that's right. In the Kalahari, leopards eat tama melons sometimes for the moisture content in the fruit. So they're not eating the fruits for the nutritional content therein. I mean, they probably get some benefit from it. They probably get some vitamin C. I think they're quite rich in vitamin C, so they probably get that. But I think they mainly eat the tama melons for the moisture, as you say. but it would be difficult to imagine a leopard wandering the Kalahari surviving exclusively on a diet of Gemsbok cucumbers and summer melons. I think that would be a fairly emaciated and miserable leopard. Anna Marie, you're wondering if it smells like petrichor out here. Petrichor, for those of you who don't know, is the smell that comes off the earth after rain. And as far as I understand it, it's a long time since I read it, it's the, what do they call it? It's basically a whole lot of aromatic oils that are released by water touching the ground for the first time. And Anna Marie, no, I can't smell petrichor. And the reason I can't is that it's been raining since about 2 o'clock in the morning, and so those smells of petrichor are dulled. Doesn't smell like that, you know, after it's been raining for quite a while. And 24 millimeters is a lot of rain. So the petrichor, I mean, there are hints of it, but we don't smell it a lot. So basically what it smells like now is damp grass. It smells fresh and clean, so that you can't smell any dust in the air. And interestingly, you know, we were talking about how the weather probably dulls the scent of predators. I couldn't smell anything at that wildebeest carcass, and we were sitting right downwind of it, so, you know, I should have been able to smell something. And on a hot day, I would definitely have smelt the wildebeest. Gosh, teeming with life out here. Let's pop up onto the damn wall. The spider is making a web on my hat. This dam has filled up. You know, it's not much harder to drive on wet roads as long as you drive slowly. That's in this part of the world, and that's because the soils here are sandy. In the Masai Mara, where the soils are black cotton soils, or even in the southern parts of Ngala, it's much more difficult after 24 millimeters of rain to drive without getting stuck. Here we go, and ever faithful, there is a blacksmith lapwing way out there. Can you see it there? It's in the inlet. Yeah, just zoom in there, you got him. Always there, always faithful. If ever you're desperate for content for viewers, blacksmith lapwing at a waterhole.
I think he scares everything away.
Aaron says he thinks it scares everything away. Maybe just hear the sound of the blue wax bills there going. Currently have no idea where the rest of the pride is. So I think we'll just keep on looking for them, if that's all right with you. Come on, Ern. On we go. Alone as we are in the wilderness. Before I do that, where is the monitor cover? I had hoped that we would be able to avoid this, but... Lisa, you say you love the rain, but you feel bad for me. I wouldn't feel bad for me for one single solitary second. I'll tell you why. That's because I'm sitting out here in the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. While so many of the world's population are stuck in houses and flats and tiny spaces where they can't move and they can't get out. So, you know what? I'll suffer a little bit of rain for the morning, and I'll do it with gratitude. A comment comes from somebody who's given themselves the name Monkey Mutant Bus. Monkey Mutant Bus, you say the smooth sounds of the rain in my voice are making you nod off. Oh, boss, Monkey Mutant Boss. I'm sorry I'm putting you to sleep. Am I sorry? I'm probably not. Maybe you want to be nodding off. I mean, it's always a good thing to be soothed, right? I don't think you meant it in a negative way. I think while we're around here, let's pop into the clan headquarters of the Djuma clan. MJ, you say I'm a goat. I don't understand. Oh, I see. Right, I get it. Thank you, MJ. So I am the goat. Just got it now. My wife, who is directing, explained it to me. Luckily, her brain is a bit bigger than mine. And the next comment in my ear, everybody was much bigger. That's very kind. Thank you, Tony Two Toes. You say you enjoy the meandering conversations on these quiet drives where we just talk gently about stuff and shoot the breeze and consider different things about life out here in the wilderness. I hope life for you, Tony, is okay, that your enormous criminal enterprises have not taken too much of a hit as a result of COVID-19. Maybe you're going to get into contraband again, or maybe prohibition will kick off again and you'll be able to make some time out of that. Certainly in South Africa, I imagine you'd find a ready market, because our liquor outlets are closed. You're not allowed to get a drink out here, and so very soon people are going to start distilling their own, and then we're going to need distribution, Tony, and that's probably where you come in. I've always loved the term speakeasy. I think that the number of speakeasies that are popping up in the rural areas of South Africa probably outnumbers the number of COVID-19 cases that we have. And that is not in any way to diminish the problem that COVID-19 is in South Africa. But South Africans are renowned for being able to make a plan in just about any situation. And I've no doubt that there are a number of people who want a drink. I'm pretty sure they're getting them. I don't know if it's the same in the rest of the world, but you can't buy any kind of liquor in this country while we're on this lockdown period. So there are a lot of people getting a lot healthier, and a lot of people feeling probably quite a few symptoms of withdrawal. Jane, no, I definitely don't have a seatbelt in the vehicle. If I had a seatbelt, I wouldn't be able to get out as frequently as I would like to. There's no need to wear a seatbelt in the vehicle. We don't ever drive fast enough to necessitate it. Well, sometimes we do when we're going after wild dogs or something. But as far as I'm aware, only 2 people I know have ever fallen out of a vehicle. One of them is Tristan Dix, and he was driving so slowly that quite how he managed to do it, I don't know. But that wasn't a speed issue. It's also hysterically funny. I'm not sure if you can just Google Tristan Dix falling out of a car, but you might be able to just type that into the Google machine and do yourself a favour. And I think Taylor McCurdy fell out of a car once as well. Me? No, Louise fell out of the back of the car, that's different. And Taylor also face planted in a puddle, that's also hysterically funny. That might be the greatest video I've ever seen. Totally unset up. Tony's just replied to say he can still send the boys out 2 at a time. Yeah, Tony, I knew you'd make a plan. That's good. 2 at a time, out there go. You're keeping your authority going, yeah. Because, you know, you take a break for 2 seconds and someone else to jump in the gap you made. Good for you, Tony. The Australians have taken a slightly different view on booze. Apparently in Australia it's considered an essential service, so you can still get it there. Yeah, I'm not deeply surprised by that. And in America and Canada apparently, yeah, but I imagine the Australians probably more so than the rest. I'm presuming it must be the same in Ireland. I can't imagine the Irish going without for too long. So many of you want me to go and visit the Grebe. We can definitely do that. I'm just not going to do it just yet. We're a little bit far from there. I mean, nothing's particularly far from anywhere on Djuma, but we're close to the Hyena den, so we'll go there first. And then, yeah, I mean, we'll probably cover most of the reserve in the 3 hours that I'll be yakking away at you. Why there are no other lions at that kill? Because they made enough noise yesterday to attract the rest of the pride. Trevor, please will you post the link to that video on the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter. Trevor says he's just watched the video of Tristan falling out of the car. For those of you who don't know, Tristan Dix, highly experienced highly experienced guide, presenter, phenomenal photographer, and lockdown unfortunately has him stuck in Hoedspruit and not with us here. Well, he would be, I think he was supposed to be coming in on the 19th, and I'm not sure if that's going to happen anymore because of the law. Anyway, so if you do watch the video and you've never seen Tristan before, don't take that as a measure of the man's skill. He's a great leopard tracker as well. And you should definitely, if you like photographs and you like wildlife photography, you need to follow Tristan Dix on Instagram. He doesn't post that frequently because he's OCD about his editing, and they are just so beautifully done. Unsurprisingly, there is no sign of ribone here. I suspect she's found a thick bush to lie beneath. She's been around though. You can see that she's been on the side of the termite mound at the den's entrance. can see that from all the scuffs. And that's relatively recent activity. I imagine those cubs are warm and dry and comfortable right now then. We'll sit here for precisely 2 minutes, take a breather. Many of you saying that Tristan Dix should be an essential service. I agree. Cape turtle dove calling in the background. I mean, I don't think Ribbon's gone into the den. I would have thought that highly unlikely. Good. The rain's getting harder. It's exciting. Many of you wondering about flooding in that den. I think flooding is very unlikely. But if there was a den that was going to flood, it would probably be, well, I'd say this one's, it's semi at risk because the entrance has such a wide kind of, I don't know, access that points straight up. You know, many of them on the side of the mound, so rain can't fall directly into them. But at least it's raised. You know, it's not like water's going to come flowing down the path and straight into the den. I don't think it'll flood in there. Those lions are calling at the kill. I don't think you'll be able to hear them. Alright, let's leave here. Let's pop past those lions once more while we're in this area, and then we'll move slightly further afield. We're still okay with the rain. We don't have to shut down just yet. Owen, do you want to close the sides, or are you alright? We're alright, okay. Owen says we're fine. Apparently it's very hard at the final control room. Yeah, as long as we putt along, Owen says we should be okay. When you start driving too fast, that is the problem. Oh, Tanmay, the deadliest snake in the reserve is the worm slung or tree snake. And although it's a very shy snake, and it's not a snake that will bite you very readily, in other words, you have to really make it very cross for it to bite you. Once it does bite you, you will certainly die if you don't get medical attention. Now, what's nice about it, is that the venom will take quite a long time to kill you. But I think they consider it the most venomous because so little venom, just a tiny drop of the venom, will kill a human being. Probably the most dangerous snake here, however, is not the boom slung or tree snake because it's so hard to get bitten by a boom slung or tree snake. I think the most dangerous snake is the black mamba. And the black mamba is a snake that will bite readily. In other words, it won't think twice about biting you if it feels afraid or threatened. You know, and that's where they're dangerous. And if you get bitten by a black mamba, you really need to get to a doctor within sort of an hour, maybe even less than that. Otherwise you can be in real trouble. But the treatment, once you are with a doctor, is actually quite simple. It's a bit terrifying, but it's quite simple. They put you on a ventilator, so basically your body will shut down. And as long as you've got a life support machine that will breathe for you and keep oxygen flowing through your body, you can survive. It'll just take a couple of days and the venom will work its way out of your system and you can survive. But with a worm stung or tree snake bite, you've got to have medical attention, you've got to have blood transfusions, I think a number of blood transfusions. That's where they replace all of the blood in your body, and you have to do that a few times in order to survive the bite of a tree snake. And there's an amazing story about a researcher who was in the Kruger Park doing his research, and so he had permission to walk off road and do what he was doing. I don't know, I forget what he was researching. Anyway, he parked his car on the side of one of the tourist roads, walked off into the bush to do whatever sampling he was doing, and a mamba bit him. And he knew exactly what it was, and he knew what to do, and he was very calm, and he quickly wrote. He had a notebook with him, and he wrote on his notebook, "I've been bitten by a black mamba. I will lose the power of speech soon. I will struggle to breathe. You need to get me to a doctor and commence CPR if I stop breathing." And he walked very calmly from where he'd been bitten with this note in his hand out onto the road where the car was, and thankfully there was a tourist vehicle going past, and he waved it down, and he couldn't speak by that stage, and he handed them the note, and they threw him in the car and drove as fast as they could. I think he put phone numbers of the right people to go and see, and the right medical care, etc. And they got him to a doctor in time, and he survived. So that was very clever. You want to put the sides down?
No, it was just a
Yeah, I mean, Kirsten and Louise are just saying in the final control that they've got goosebumps from that story. Yeah, no, I must say, if there is a fear I have of snakes out here, it's of the mamba. But I don't know how many times I've just got out of the car, walked off into the bush, and never seen a snake. And yet, when I do see a mamba, we saw one, what was it, Owen? 2 afternoons ago. Yeah, we saw a mamba on the road, and it jumped up and got out of the way of the car and slithered off into the bush. I couldn't see it as soon as it moved off the road, which means that I must sometimes be about to step on one, but 99.9% of the time they're just moving away from us. This is fun, isn't it, Owen? This is just the best. You'll notice we're driving extremely slowly. This is not because I suspect we're about to see something. It is because the rain is coming in from the southeast, and so in order to avoid flooding the place, we're just going to go slowly. Yes, loves to lumber. At the end of a 3-hour drive, if I'm on my own, I'm pretty tired of talking. At least if I've got a sighting, I don't have to talk the whole time. We can just look at it and appreciate. But also, I find on these quiet drives, and we've all found the same thing, that if there isn't another vehicle to cut to, often the conversation gets quite interesting, and people just keep it going. There are lots of questions and topics to yak about, and so it's kind of as much up to you guys as it is up to me to keep things flowing. I don't think it's going to rain like this the whole morning, and I'm sure Lauren will go out eventually. Yes, Jenna, I mean, I don't know if it's the only story like that, but I do know about the guy who was killed in the Kruger many years ago by a leopard. He was standing on a bridge. He used to go, as far as I remember the story, was go onto this bridge every evening. What? He used to go onto a bridge every evening, overlooking a river, obviously, and he'd have it was a low bridge, like a causeway, and he'd have a cigarette there, and obviously there was an old leopard lurking under the bridge, and it had figured out his routine, and one night he stepped out and had a cigarette, as he had done hundreds of times, and the old, I think it was a male leopard, jumped out and grabbed him and killed him in about, I think it was, I mean, nobody witnessed it, so, but it looked like it had been a tremendously fast death. And yeah, no, that does give one a little bit of toe curl when you think about going that way. The thing is that stories like that, just like with stories of sharks killing people and snakes biting people, they're the ones you hear about. I mean, you don't hear about the countless times we encounter leopards on foot, or that they just watch us go by while we're looking for them on foot and they leave us alone. And it's the same with snakes and with sharks. But it's always a good reminder that, you know, the animals out here are potentially dangerous, and that we are physically so inferior. It really does amaze me when I watch monkeys or baboons climbing around in trees, jumping from branch to branch, hauling themselves up with one arm. It just, it blows my mind how the human physique has become so physically weak in comparison with many of the animals out here. There is one element of our physicality where we are superior to many, many animals, most animals, and that's our ability to move for extended periods. And so there are almost no animals that are able to run the distances that we are in the heat that we are. Now that might astound some of you, but the human being is designed to operate in the middle of the day in the heat, and they do this in a number of clever ways. While we look at this impala, we are upright, which means that much less of our surface area is exposed to the rays of the midday sun by being upright. Obviously, this doesn't apply to Caucasian or white people so much, because we didn't evolve in Europe. We evolved as a species in Africa, where melanin was part of, you know, our makeup, so our skin was black, like African people to this day. And so being out in the sun at midday, with the sun shining on a black skin that is orientated to the sun vertically rather than horizontally, results in much less heat absorption. We also sweat far more effectively than most animals. We don't have any hair on our bodies, or very little hair. Some of us have it on our backs, unfortunately, but for the most part, human beings not particularly hairy, and so that helps us to lose heat. And then the way we're designed, the way our bipedal form is designed, allows us to move for extended periods, albeit slowly, without getting very tired and without using too much energy. And so while we're quite slow, we're excellent at moving long distances in hot conditions. Yes, that is what I said. Correct. Better than you at long distance running. The lions are calling again. I think that's probably why he's looking a bit skitty. He's looking towards where they're calling. And I'm pretty sure it's the lions at the kill, yes. I would drive there, but now the rain is falling so hard that driving is going to result in a flood. drive very slowly, Owen. Many of you are asking for more bush stories. It's always at that point that I can never remember any story. It's like when somebody says, what's your favorite sighting? I've got no idea. Somebody says, what's the most dangerous thing that's ever happened to you? I don't know, I don't remember. What's the most beautiful thing? I don't remember. If you, however, give me a story about something, I'll probably have a much better chance of remembering something that's interesting or amusing or worth telling you about. Kirsten's saying, what about the story about baboons breaking into a guest room? Well, if you want to know about baboons breaking into guest rooms, there's one that many of you will have heard this before, but you know, there's only so much you can do on a rainy day. And it appears almost verbatim in the book A Year in the Wild, but I'll tell it to you now. And there was an Arab sheik of some description. I don't know where he was from, but he was arriving in a private jet at Londolozi Game Reserve, obviously massively salubrious establishment, beautiful place, huge reputation. And this guy had booked out, I don't know if he'd booked out the whole camp. He may well have booked out the whole place. Anyway, they had prepared a suite for him. And he brought an entourage including chefs, a hairdresser, any number of wives. I don't know how many it was exactly, but there were quite a few, and each wife had her own room. Security detail. I think a whole lot of their own food as well. Not to mention quite a lot of whiskey, which I don't think was necessarily supposed to be public knowledge, but there it was. And this was way long ago, sort of very early 2000s or late, yeah, very early 2000s I think it was. And everything was perfectly organized, and the room was sorted. And the operations manager at the time was a tremendously character-filled woman who, she was a brilliant chef, but you know, very emotional. So when stuff went wrong, you knew about it. And she went, as the plane landed, he came in a private jet. She went down to just do one final check of the room and check that everything was okay. And someone had left a sliding door open. The baboons had got in and they had totaled the place. Now, I don't know if you've ever been into a room that the baboon troop has decided to burgle, but it's not pretty. They had opened the minibar, bitten through all of the cans that had been in the minibar. That had then obviously cut their gums, so there was blood everywhere. They had smashed the crystal decanters in which the sheik's whiskey and sherry were. That had then resulted in them cutting their hands, because they had then walked all over the broken glass. So there was blood all over the place from that. One of them, and she used to tell a great story, so I'm not entirely sure if this is true, but as she got into the room, the baboons were still there. She said one of them, I don't know if I want to know if this is true or not, but I just love it too much, the image. A young baboon was apparently hanging on the ceiling fan, going around and around and around, screaming loudly. And then there were others that were on the bed, taking the pictures off the walls. And when baboons burgle a place like this, there were others in the shower drinking the what do you call them? I always want to call them condiments. What are they called? It's not called a condiment. No, not the complimentary. It's called something else. No, not the... Yes, they were drinking the complimentary shampoo, but there's another word for it. Anyway, they were drinking that, and they were in glass bottles, so those were all smashed, more blood on the sink and everywhere. But the worst part of when a baboon burgles a place is that they have no decorum about where and when they void their bowels. And so there was baboon poo everywhere. On the bed, smeared on the walls, on the sink, in the loo, on the sofa. It was a big suite, everywhere. Now the plane's landed and this guy is on his way to the lodge. So she's got a radio, and obviously she puts out an emergency call on the radio. I don't think there was any fancy code about it. I just think she used a lot of 4-letter words and said, everybody on deck here right now. And she said to the guide who was bringing the guest Sheik down now, I don't care what you do, you get him onto the deck at the main camp and you entertain him, because we've got a problem. So everybody rushed down to this room and they began to clean it up. And being Londolozi, they managed to do it in very little time at all. But there is no way of getting rid of the stink of baboon poo. It's not as bad as lion poo, but it's bad. And it is a stink that seems to pervade, no matter how thoroughly you clean something. And so the room, by this stage, looks great. They've got the Sheik up on the deck because one of the guys has now pretended that he's seen a leopard in the Sand River just below, and he's trying desperately to show the Sheik this leopard. Sheik is totally disinterested, just wants to go to his room, and eventually says, take me to the room now. And so the guide has no option but to sort of start walking down. And Yvonne looks into the room and she says, this looks great, but it smells appalling. What are we going to do about this? And one of the trackers, I think it was, says, well, there's elephant dung outside. Why don't we just tell him it's that? And she says, but you can see that elephant made that dung about 4 weeks ago. It's dry. And so he said, it's no problem. And he quickly went round the back of the room, brought out a hose pipe, sprayed it with water. And as the Sheik came in the front door, everybody disappeared out the back door. And he apparently sniffed around a bit but didn't seem to take too much notice, and his stay went off without a hitch after that. I'm pretty sure that some of the story was exaggerated when I heard it, especially the bit about the young baboon swinging around and around on the ceiling fan, but I'm not sure if that's true. Lou wants to know what? Oh, no, I don't think the guest came back, but I'm not sure he came back to Africa at all. Thank you, Judy H. My saviour on so many occasions. Guest amenities is what I wanted to use. The complimentary shampoo, the guest amenities. I always want to call them condiments. They are not. So the amenities, that's the one. Yes. Sky, the most angry I've ever felt with a guest. Well, interestingly, I felt a fair swirl of anger in my blood very recently when I watched The Tiger King, because I drove one of those guys. One of those guys was a guest at andBeyond Ngala many years ago. Doc Antle, who went by the name of Bhagavan at that stage. He came out there to marry his second wife, where his first wife was the bridesmaid. And I must confess that I found watching that and seeing some of the antics that went on at his place to be, yeah, it made my blood boil slightly. But I suppose, I mean, look, there have been a number of times I've been angry with guests. I think very seldom have I been forced to voice that anger. Once, though, was with a guest who, he was out. We used to get these groups that came through Ngala. They were one-nighters. They'd done some deal with Ngala where, you know, it was early on in Ngala's days, and so they weren't very full, and so this tour group got a really good deal, and they came in only for one night. And Ngala was a wild place, and to show everybody everything in just one night there, especially from the main camp, so not the tented camp where Nikki and Sean and Rowan are operating from, was very difficult. And these guides would, you know, they'd come into the bush for a night, and that was it, and then they'd go off to on the garden route. I don't know what else they did. And they were almost always Germans. And we had a leopard on a kill, which was fantastic. It was really good. And I think it was the S-Bend female was her name. And so we all rushed down, a big group of people, and, you know, 4 or 5 guides driving them. And we drove down and we cycled through the leopard sighting. And when I got in, I was parked there, and it was a tricky situation where you had to get pretty close to get a view. She was a very relaxed leopard for the most part. You just had to be a little bit careful, a bit like Tundi, where, you know, if you made too much noise or behaved like a fool, she'd give you a rev. Anyway, this guy had a camera or something in a plastic bag, and the plastic bag must have been folded over 500 times, because as soon as we got into the sighting, he started ruffling the plastic bag. Yeah, the lions are calling here, right here. Let's quickly move on. I'll carry on the story now. They're shouting nicely now. See him there? He's turning, yeah. You got him. Let's just see if he calls again. Jackal on the front, or in the front there. Now don't go away now. I'm afraid we can't follow him in there because that's the south of our reserve. Just move to where we were earlier. I think we've got here too late. I think they're moving off. Pity. We couldn't have driven here any faster though. That's where the carcass is. I'll just stop here. I hear some others calling way down to the south. Nix. Just see if the jackal comes up. He might come and see if he can steal some food. I'll just carry on my story while we wait. So the S-bend female was sitting in the tree eating her food, and I told everybody, look, just be quiet when we go in. We have to get close, otherwise we're not going to see it. So just be very careful and don't stand up. And this guy started unraveling whatever it was that was holding his camera. And the leopard looked up and did that little kind of lip lift snarl at him. And I said, stop doing that, please. And he stopped. Sorry, he says. So then he did it again, but louder. And the leopard looked up. Lion's calling, sorry. Where at least some of the rest of the pride are. I seriously doubt there's a lion in view now, but I'll happily try. Oh, I see one. Yeah, he's coming back. You see him there?
Directly behind the cluster
Of course he is. Is he moving still?
Yeah, he's coming towards us.
Let's just wait here and see where he finishes up. This is Blondie, I think. He might come to the carcass. Alternatively, he might just sit behind the bush. Go back a bit. Oh, come on, lion. It's really the most inconvenient place for you to sit. There, you'll get him now. Got him?
Behind the terminal.
No, that is Blondie.
Is it?
Yes. Is it? I think that's Mohawk. But I'm happy to be corrected. Oh, it's Blondie. The viewers are confirming it. Really? I mean, I don't doubt you. I'm just distressed at my own inability to see the difference. Let me go back another little bit. Nothing. No, I can't go much further than this, I'm afraid, because then I will be in the realm of trespassing. Yeah, 2 feet. No, you got him. Do you? No, let's move. No, now apparently everybody is saying it is mohawk. I'm convinced that that's mohawk. I just don't trust myself enough to dispute it from our long-standing, long-suffering viewers. Yeah, no, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave him, and we'll see if we can find something else. Anyway, quite a few newish tracks here. Kirsten, I'm afraid there's nothing I can do about my lapel. Literally nothing. Unless that's fixed it. Can we do that vulture? He's in that tree there, straight in front of you. There's the hooded vulture. Lions are still calling. Lions have stopped calling now. And there is the hooded vulture. Shame. Sources of slight pity. The smallest of our vulture species, dominated with every carcass. What's that, Aaron? A bush.
Yes.
Called Arundel's dendrological safaris. We'll just sit here for another couple of minutes and see if the lions call again. Right, I'll finish my story now. Anyway, so now this fellow ruffles his plastic bag again, and the leopard stands up, growls at him, and then jumps, you know, sort of takes 2 steps towards us out of the tree. So I turned around and I said, "Sit down and shut up!" And, I mean, that's not the kind of thing that you normally want to say to a guest. And so he looked at me and he said, "Okay, sorry." And then he dropped his plastic bag out of the car onto the ground. At which point the leopard leapt out of the tree, growled at us and disappeared into the undergrowth and wasn't seen again. So I didn't have to say anything else at that point because the rest of the guests turned around and started shouting at him in German. I don't know what they said, but I don't think it was complimentary. That's probably the angriest I've been with a guest. Lions are still calling. There we go. Isn't that wonderful? What a sound. Alright, let's move on from here. Good. Well, it was worth the wait, for sure. Bruce, you say you've just finished the book A Year in the Wild by yours truly, and you're wondering how much of it is autobiographical. I don't know. 30%, 30 to 40% maybe. A lot of it's embellished and exaggerated, and people often who know me say, well, I know exactly who that character is. And most of the time they're wrong, because none of the characters are real people. They're all amalgams of different people I've met, for sure. But they, you know, it's fiction. It's a work of fiction based on experience, I suppose. And one of the characters is, I suppose, more like me than one of the others. It's an interesting one. A friend of mine and I started writing it together. And he shall remain nameless for various reasons. And unfortunately, he couldn't carry on writing the book. And so I had to write the second half on my own, or a lot of the second half on my own. And so he was the one brother, Hugh, and I was the other. And I think it worked really nicely doing it like that. And I'm sad for the second one that we couldn't collaborate. Anyway, it was great fun producing and writing. That's a dove. It was just a wet dove. Kathy, you're wondering about Jamie. For those of you who don't know, Jamie, another wonderful guy who worked for us for many years, a hyena expert, basically a genius, and she decided quite late in life, aged 29, to go off and do veterinary science, or try and do veterinary science. She is currently doing a first year BSc Agriculture in Pretoria, and at the midway through the year, well, I mean, this pandemic allowing, she will then apply again to go into veterinary school. She's doing all right. She's in Johannesburg. She writes articles for Africa Geographic, which is an e-magazine or e-blog, I don't know what they call it, but really nice articles. Alright, what we're going to do from here is head towards the north. I still am unconvinced that those lions I was tracking 2 days ago have left Djuma. Maybe they have now, but I think that there's a good chance that they haven't. So let's go and pop up there, and maybe we'll be extremely lucky and bump into a leopard on the way. Or an elephant, or a duiker, anything really. Pedro, I don't know the story of catching a baboon with salt, so I don't know if it's true. What is the story of catching a baboon with salt? That's just Owen wiping the lens, in case you thought something amiss was going on. I have no idea about catching a baboon with salt, but I would say it's probably deeply untrue. And let me tell you, you don't want to catch a baboon. A baboon is a fearsome creature. It is a fearsome animal with massive canines, longer than a leopard's, muscles that will make most men quiver. And it's not afraid of violence if threatened sufficiently. Look at that Senegal lapwing. GDH requesting the story of the people with a lizard in their room. I'm just trying to remember how I told it, but basically very polite couple. I'm assuming they were English, so they're very understated. First time on safari, and they got to the lodge, and receptionist said, you know, tired, bored receptionist said, you know, if you've got any problems, just phone me. I'll do what I can, kind of thing. Dismissed them and hoped not to see them again until tea time. Tea time was supposed to be at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And in the afternoon at 4 o'clock, well, no, they phoned sort of at around 3 and said, I'm so terribly sorry to trouble you, but there's a lizard in our room. Do you think you could come have a look at it, or get someone to take it out? She said, no, don't worry about it. It's just a lizard. They're not poisonous. It's not an issue. They're not venomous. Just leave it alone. It'll go away. Don't worry about it. Oh. And she put the phone down. Phoned him half an hour later and said, the lizard is still in the room and doesn't appear to be minded to go anywhere else. She said, just leave it alone, it'll be fine. Don't worry about it, we'll see you at tea. 4 o'clock rolls around and everyone else is on deck, and the guide's now getting irritated because these guests are late. The rest of the guests want to go on game drive, and apparently another phone call went through to the reception, and the receptionist is now at tea telling the guide, you know, about these difficult guests who are in room 2. And now they're late. They kept phoning about this bloody lizard that was in their room. And, you know, who do people think they are that such a thing is worth complaining about and phoning about? You know, everyone's having a good laugh at their expense. And eventually 4:30 comes around, and the rest of the guests are getting really irritated. They're on the Land Rover. They're waiting to go out and drive. So the ranger stomps off to their room, tears open the door, and there he finds this couple standing. I don't recall where the phone was or if it was in hand or not. But there was a massive, massive rock monitor lizard sitting on the floor beneath the chair on which they were standing, huddled in terror, hiding away or trying desperately to avoid the swishing, slashing tail of this rock monitor. So in typically British understated British fashion, they'd said they'd had a small problem with the lizard. And in actual fact, they were having a rather big problem with the rock monitor, pinned on a chair in their room at an exclusive safari lodge. I probably modified the story slightly, but that's the basic gist of it. Shame. James Richard wants more stories on the Khalaqadi. Well, for those of you who don't know, I was married a month and, what is it, almost 5 weeks ago now. Good grief, it feels like so much longer. And my wife, who is currently giving me instructions in my ear and feeding the questions through to me, and I decided that, you know, we'd like to go on a honeymoon, but things being as they were, we probably couldn't afford to go off to the Maldives and sit on an island and quaff cocktails. So we thought, well, why don't we My wife wanted to go to Tswalu. She's got an obsession with Tswalu. She's never been there before. She's seen a couple of pictures, but she's decided that this is the place she has to go, and that's in the Kalahari. And I said there's absolutely no way at this stage of my existence that I can afford to take you to Tswalu. So why don't we go to the Kalahari, which is a trans-frontier park? And she mulled this over and mentioned it to her father, who very kindly said, well, I've got this camping trailer thing. And in fact, he bought it so that he could do a trip to Botswana, which unfortunately has subsequently been cancelled because of the coronavirus. And he said, well, why don't you just take my trailer and then you can go and camp in the Kalahari? And so we took up his very kind offer and said, yeah, it's a great idea, that's what we're going to do. And so I planned 14 days for us in the Trans-Frontier Park. And I must just state at this juncture that while I have camped a little bit in my time before, I am no expert. People have always been astounded at how incredibly poor I am at lighting a fire, because they say, well, you lived in the bush. Yes, I did, but I lived at 5-star lodges where lighting a fire was never something I had to do. So I'm not really a great camper. Well, I am now. Now I'm a genius at it. But when we began, I wasn't a great camper. And so we set off to the Kalahari with this giant trailer behind us. It's basically a mobile home. And we spent 14 wonderful days in the Kalahari, and we're turning that into a video series now. It's just taking a little bit of time because my wife and I can't agree on the editing process, but it's coming together slowly. It will be posted online in due course. And we had the most tremendous time, and I'm trying to think, I guess real highlight for me was meeting ground squirrels for the first time. I don't know how many of you have ever met a ground squirrel. A ground squirrel is a hugely confiding creature, especially when, despite all instruction to the contrary, they are bribed with pecan nuts, which is what my wife used to bribe them. And we stayed at one camp where there was a little group of them, 2 females and their babies, living in the camp, basically. And they went about their days. Yes, they'd eat the odd nut if you threw one at them. Well, I didn't, obviously, my wife did. But otherwise, they just go about their days and totally oblivious to you. So we could sit and take wonderful pictures of them. We could just sit and be meters from them, watching them. And they are unspeakably cute little things. They brought their babies out to meet us. The babies would play in front of us. In the heat of the day, they sit with their little parasol tails over their heads so that they have shade, ready shade. And then in the night time, just before they went under their burrows, they would clean the burrows out, clean the entrance around the burrow. And I don't know enough about them to tell you why they do this, but that's what they did. And then the mothers would go and gather grass. They'd go and gather fresh grass or fresh vegetation and take it down into the burrows, obviously to lie in the sleeping chamber. And then as the sun went down, after they'd watched it go down, they'd disappear down into their burrows. So they were a tremendous highlight of the Kalahari. Also in the same camp we had 2 red-necked falcons. And that was quite special because we'd go and park next to the waterhole next to the camp. And these red-necked falcons would come flying through and try and grab shaft-tailed widers off the trees and red-headed finches. And that was a wonder to behold. Another huge highlight was the brown hyena. We both wanted to see brown hyenas, my wife specifically. And one morning, well, the first night we saw one in Botswana, I turned the torch on. I was going to throw something in the bin, and there was one looking at us. And I said, quickly, look, there's a brown hyena. We didn't get any pictures of it, and then we didn't see one for the next few days. And then one morning, we were sitting at this waterhole, sipping coffee, and the brown hyena appeared way in the distance, and then it wove a little closer, and then it went away again. And slowly, over the course of about half an hour, it came right up to the waterhole where we were sitting and drank next to us. and it was just a beautiful animal. I don't know if you've ever seen a brown hyena, but it looks a little bit like a mix between a wolf and a hyena. And it was just great to have the whole place to ourselves and this brown hyena watching us. So that was a great highlight. A slightly more amusing story, which goes along with not being a camping genius, is that we kind of let ourselves into it early or easily. We went first to the South African side, where there are much more established camps, where there are ablution facilities and you can plug your trailer in and, you know, charge the batteries, and you can get water and that sort of stuff. You don't have to carry your own water. And I don't know how many of you have ever been camping in a South African national park, but the characters who generally are in these places have spent a lot of money, but also countless hours refining how they do this camping thing. And they've all got their own methods, and all their methods are the best available quickly, and the setting up and folding up of the whole thing is done fast. Thousands of different methods, of which these people are very, very proud. And when we pulled into Twerefuren, which is the first camp in the Kalahari, this on the South African side, it was full, but for 1 or 2 campsites, or maybe 3 or 4, and we couldn't decide which one we wanted. But an experienced camper in one of these places can spot a rookie at 100 paces. They know, they can, even before you've arrived, they are excited because they know that there's a rookie coming. And you pull in there, and I don't know what it is about your general demeanor or the atmosphere you're giving off, but they know that you haven't done this before. And there is nothing that an experienced camper in these sorts of places likes more than to watch a rookie butchering the job of setting up camp. And we provided enormous entertainment for most of the people in that camp on the first night. First of all, we drove around it 5 times because we couldn't decide where we wanted to park our trailer, and by the end of it we weren't speaking to each other. Eventually we selected a spot, put the thing in place, and got out of the car and realized that we had before that had happened, we'd lost both dolly wheels in the front of the trailer. So the corrugations had released the catches, and these 2 stands that the trailer stands on when you take it off the car had disappeared somewhere on the road. And we'd bought 2 more, assumed they'd fit, put them in the back and driven into the Kalahari. I took them out and realized that they didn't fit. So we now had no way of taking the car off the trailer. I managed to jemmy one so that it fit, but the other just didn't. And so I took to the bracket with a hammer. And this noise, catastrophic noise, brought out everybody from their camps. And we have one really funny video where I'm bashing away at this bracket, and Kirsten says, I bet this is going to attract a whole lot of people, or something like that. And sure enough, into the top right hand side of the frame you can see these 3 enormously fat individuals walk into frame looking. And so instead of going on game drive, they decided they would watch us set up camp, which I think was probably quite entertaining. Anyway, we eventually got it done, after much shouting, laughing, hitting in the case of Kirsten to me, and finally we managed to sort it all out. So that was the kind of easing into it. So there was water available and there was electricity. And then after 2 days on the South African side, where we saw beautiful scenery, cheetah, jackal, lion, leopard, springbok, gemsbok, gorgeous red dunes with those beautiful yellow flowers called dubbeltjies all over them, it was time to stop this light sort of gentle camping experience and head terra incognito to the east to Botswana. And so it was that we packed up on the one morning and we headed off into Botswana, where the roads are not graded, at all. They're not supposed to be. It's not like they've been indolent. It's supposed to be wilder. And we had to drive over these dunes all the way to the east of Botswana. It was about a 14-hour day in the car. So it was a long, about 12 hours. So it took us a long time. But halfway along these dunes, you've got to be quite careful because you can get stuck quite quickly in the sand, especially pulling a trailer, which has now got 100 litres of water in it. And you've got to get momentum going up the top of the dune and then slow down before you get to the top so that you don't go over the end and then rip the trailer off and cause a real problem. So we were doing okay as we went up to the top and then down the other side, and then we found one dune that I couldn't get over the top of it because it was so corrugated that you had to slow down before the momentum carried you over the top, otherwise the thing would bounce the car and then bounce the trailer and do some serious damage. And so we got out of the car, we let the tires down further because you have to do that in the sand, and then we eventually managed to make it down, and we thought we were doing really well until about 5 minutes later. Kirsten looked out the side of the car and she said, "Oh my," and I looked in the rear view mirror, and a plastic chopping board, bowls, knives and forks and various other things were flying into the Kalahari because the side of the trailer had detached itself. And so we had to then walk back to collect our bits and pieces because the corrugations had resulted in the trailer pretty much giving up on staying closed. And so we then had to strap the thing shut with a ratchet strap. And so it was that our learning of the art of camping proceeded. Like I say, not without some fairly choice language, sometimes directed at each other, often just at the world in general. Look at that. A magnificent leopard tortoise. R. Laura Moore, you say you could make a reality TV show out of our honeymoon. Well, with any luck, the series in 4 to 6 episodes called Me, My Wife and the Wildlife will appear online in the not too distant future. Isn't he a magnificent fellow? Kirsten, I wonder if you could prevail upon my colleagues who are now sitting at camp. Oh, good. Okay, I was just about to say, given that the sun's come out, Lauren and David are now going to drag themselves from the comforts of wherever they were. They're finishing making their ambulance. What? Oh. They better not be making omelettes. She's teasing. Good. Phew. Yeah, Lauren is hailing me on the radio. Go ahead. I'm on Weird Tele-Access. I'm going to go up Aubrey's around the north. The lions seem to have moved off, but one of them might still be there if you want to go down there. Louis de Lion, I do in fact have an earpiece permanently in my ear, as you suggest. Kirsten likes to be able to talk to me at all times of the day, so I have to wear a radio and she can give me commands from wherever she is. I'm going to take this off now. It's going to result in some ruffling noise. Oh, the sun. Hello, where have you been all day, huh? Fairly wet out here. I've now lost my radio, so my wife can't talk to me, which is going to result in my being in trouble. There we go. okay. I think we're good to go, Owen. Yes? The tortoise has moved off. Now the tortoises will sort of be trying to think about estivation now as the puddles dry up, but as soon as the puddles come, then they will emerge once more from wherever they've been in a torpor. Jenna, yes, we did stay at Nosop Camp. We certainly stayed there. It was there that our battery died, and two rather ingenious fellows at Nosop Camp managed to fix the trailer battery into the car using some nails and some cable ties and goodness knows what else that I really don't want my father-in-law ever to know about or see. And for those of you who don't know, the Kalahari is, I mean, it's a magnificent thing, or magnificent park. It's two pieces. There's a South African piece, which used to be the Kalahari Gemsbok National Park, and then the Gemsbok National Park of Botswana on the Botswana border. And you can cross it, as long as you don't go out of the park on the Botswana side, you don't need a passport or anything like that, you just cross the border at will, as long as you've got a camp booking. So that's really great. I'm just going to look at that crested barbet on the ground there. And then on the South African side, it's sort of typical national parks, all nice, clean, well-established camps. They have a feel to them that, I don't know, it's difficult to explain unless you've been to one. They're very nice camps in many respects. Their designs are slightly odd in many respects too, but they're very comfortable. But on the Botswana side, they're literally just campsites. Some of them with no facilities at all, some of them with just shade, a few with a little bit of, with a shower, but just beautiful. This is wonderful. So, while you're looking at those birds, on the day that our battery died, we were we were driving along, and we thought maybe that just something had been left on for the night, and so I got the guy who was driving around servicing the camp to come and jump start us, which he did very kindly. And then we went off on a game drive, and just kind of thought that if we drove for an hour, the battery would recharge and it would be fine. And unfortunately, as soon as I turned the car off and tried to restart it, it was dead. Absolutely stone dead. And there's only one real road on the South African side, and it's relatively, there are quite a few people that are there, so we weren't worried. We knew somebody would come along. We had jumper cables. Anyway, and a guy came along in a Land Rover, very nice chap, and, we explained the problem, and he knew a bit about Land Rovers, and he said, these systems, they're very battery heavy, and he looked at the battery, and he tested one or two things, and he said, I think your battery's dead, though, I don't think it's a charging problem. And he very kindly he jump-started us, and gave us a lot of really good advice. Anyway, someone called Jared Jordan's just got hold of us and said something along the lines of, did you enjoy it when my parents jump-started you? Is that what his comment was? So obviously, he's watching this show. Jared, your parents were an absolute lifesaver, and I hope your mother's tooth is better. Shame, she lost a tooth in the middle of the Kalahari. All right, I'm going to try and find some animals. Lauren is out. The sun is out as well, so let's go and say hello to her.
Lauren has came out with the sun. Thank goodness it's stopped raining. We don't actually have that much time left, but Davy and I, who's my cameraman today? Hello. Well, we're out for a short while, and we're on quarantine, of course, and we found these helmeted guinea fowl. Now, it's actually been a while since I've spent time with these birds. Listen to them. Get, get, get. How they've gone quiet again. I haven't seen them in quite some time, and I have to say they are the most, well, highly entertaining birds. They panic. They go into absolute panic if they get a fright, and they confuse one another. So once one starts panicking, another starts panicking, and really we have pandemonium on our hand. And of course that iconic blue face with the red, well, the red hat on makes them highly entertaining. But the most fascinating thing about these birds is they are omnivorous, which means they can utilize a really sort of broad range of food, from insects to get their protein, to seeds, bulbs, tubers, and even berries. So they're very good at eating, well, everything. And of course, they're probably enjoying the sun. Most of them will be preening and shaking and getting the water off their feathers. Now, poor James has managed to hold the show today, hold the fort, but at least we're out. And of course, I don't think we're in store for rain for the time being. So now we are going to pop in to see Ribbon. Hello everyone. Everyone is saying hello. Oh, Kirsten's saying James went to the den earlier and it was empty. How long ago was that, Kirst? An hour ago. Okay, I think I'll just pop my nose in because it's easy. It's easy to do that. And then if she's not there, we'll keep bumbling down south. I think James is heading north now. But hopefully, it's not warm, that's for sure, but hopefully since the rain's eased off, our predators will get mobile. And I don't quite know where the Incahumas have wandered off to too, but at least they spent 1-2 days with us. Okay, as I make my way to the hyena den, I think I may need to zip up my jacket. We're going to send you guys all the way across to andBeyond Ngala with Nicky and his Ngala.
Good morning, everyone. We managed to get back out to andBeyond Ngala, and while we're waiting for the rain to settle, 2 of the rangers that came back spotted the lions, and it was so interesting. If you look at the one that we currently have the camera on, you'll see it's that beautiful white female. Just want to see, she's laying in quite a dense area, a lot of grass around. I'm hoping that she might just stand up so we can get a better glimpse of her. But just based on the tracks, it looks to me this pride was following a herd of buffalo. And the buffalo already crossed out over the road where they decided to go and settle down on. So unfortunately, they weren't successful, but they were definitely following that herd of buffalo. And it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. You can see that one, she's just cleaning herself now. The grass after the rain is nice and wet. And I heard earlier you saw some guinea fowl that were pretty soaked. So now like that, the lions are now cleaning themselves. You can see that young one is just licking off all the dew and the rain. You can see the others are also just laying to the right of her. There's quite a few of them. Also have a look at that one, how she's cleaning. Looks like she might be cleaning one of the others. Safari Lover, you were asking a very good question. Can a lion's roar, or can the others tell which lion gives which roar, or what roar is given by which lion? So can they individually decide or know from who does the sound come from and tell it apart? I would say yes. Like I've often seen, especially with youngsters, whenever the mom gets up and she moves away, she'll give like a little contact call. And even if the other lions are nearby as well and they give a contact call, they would much prefer go to the mother. So I'm sure they'll be able to do that. You can see they just picked up their heads. I wonder if there isn't something that they've spotted in the distance. See how both of them are now focusing towards something. I'm just trying to use my binoculars to see if there's anything around as we speak. Oh, there's actually a guinea fowl that was moving through the grass, and that's what caught their attention. You can see even that young white female has seen something. It's definitely those guinea fowl, but they are quite quickly moving away now. Anushka, you were asking a really good question about why would the oxpeckers not sit on lions. It's just because the lions won't really tolerate them, especially if they do want to go and sit on the lions, then the lions might just catch them. The other thing that the lions would do is if they do have any ticks, they'll often pick it off themselves. Sometimes when they lick, because of that coarse tongue, they can lick a tick off, or even some of the other lions might pick the ticks off of them. But they don't really need those oxpeckers, and also I think they, especially the youngsters, they'll probably just want to try and catch it. It is slowly starting to warm up, and you can actually feel there's quite a lot of humidity, especially after the rain. And I think for them, like if it keeps warming up, they might eventually go and find a nice bit of shade to rest up for the day. But if it stays cool, it might just be an opportunity for them to carry on moving. So we'll just spend some time with those lions, see if they head anywhere pretty soon. But in the meantime, let's head across to Lauren, who found an African hoopoe.
Another bird, second bird of the day. We're not doing too bad considering, well, James did 2.5 hours and we've just popped out. I think today might be a bit of a birdie day for me. We're going to focus on birds unless Ribbon is at the den. And of course here we have an African hoopoe. Very, very easy to identify. They're quite obvious to see in flight as well because of the coloration, especially on their wings. And they have an exceptionally long, sharp beak. And this is of course because they need it to be long and sharp for what they feed on. They catch insects. They pop their beaks into holes in trees to look for insects, but also look for larvae, not just the actual insects themselves. They love earthworms, so they can really put their beaks into the soil to pluck out the earthworms as well, juicy, fat earthworms. But their diet is so vast, they will also eat very, very small frogs. They definitely couldn't opt for a bullfrog, for example, but small frogs they can, and they've also been known to feed on lizards and even snakes. But very, very small snakes at that. I don't think a rock python would be the best choice for this little one. I think he's still shaking off the rain. During the very, very heavy rains of December, we actually had a competition to see who could find the most wet and miserable bird. And it was rather hilarious when you come across all these birds that are completely soaking. The feathers are flat on their head, and they just have a very miserable appearance about them. Butterfly, yes. He looks so cute, I agree. Although I have to say, normally the feathers that stick up right on top of the head is called the crest. They're normally raised. A little bit more raised than what we're seeing right now, but essentially they do raise these feathers really, really briefly to stand up right on end when there's a sort of cause for concern or alarm. But normally their feathers are slightly more raised than that to give the mohawk look, but I think they're so flat against the head right now because they're wet, and they're probably slightly heavier than normal because they're waterlogged. But normally they've got a little bit of a crest, and then of course when there's alarm or cause for concern, the feathers completely erect, go straight right to the sort of forehead, if you like, and it really gives them that mohawk look appearance. Okay, let's just quickly pop into the den. It's always worth it. Okay, hopefully, Ribbon's here now. If not, we shall leave. And you guys are going to head back across to Nicky for now with his lions.
So a few of them just lifted their heads again. So early on, there was quite a few guinea fowl. And when they saw the lions, they moved off. And of course, there was this one that was lingering at the back. And so the lions spotted him. and immediately he flew off once he saw the lions. And now you can see they're just looking down. Still a few of them have their heads up. But I can imagine, just based on where they were seen until where they are now, they've moved quite a fair distance during the evening, like following this herd of buffalo. I think they probably have moved close to 10 kilometers during the evening. Abira, you were asking a very good question in regards to... Oh, I just want to quickly point on this white female that just stood up at the back. I'll get back to your question now in regards to why do male lions have manes and females don't have any manes. What I might just do is just bear with me. I'm going to try and just reverse the vehicle back a little bit to see if we can get a different angle, maybe see the face of this young white lion. Just hold on as I just try and reposition the vehicle. So tell me when you think you could get it right here. So there we go. Let's try and do it from here. Oh, you can just see the foot up in the air, just quickly getting all the hard to reach places. So with regards to why the males have manes and the females don't. So apparently with the manes, it acts to attract females. So often the bigger the mane and the darker the mane, the more likely females are attracted to the males. But the other thing as well is when males fight with each other, that mane actually helps to protect all the arteries and the veins near the surface of the neck. Because you imagine a very sharp claw, and when the males often fight, they claw each other and they bite around the neck. So that just adds like a little bit of protection for them. So often when you look out for lions, we always say to the guests that you need to look out for maybe the flick of the ear, maybe any bit of movement. And you can see with the tall grass, the only thing that you can really see, if that lion had to sit still, it might just look like a white rock. But because of the ears and the head moving, it's often a good way to spot a lion, especially in the tall grass. So there's a few viewers that are asking what happened with the subadult male that was chased. So I can just see him in the middle of this pride. So he basically joined up with the pride, but it doesn't look like the Ross males are here. So I think with them, after the rain, they headed on to patrol their territory to remark it, because you can imagine now if they mark with urine or dung, and there's a lot of rain, it washes away their scent. So they need to go and re-establish their territory. And because they've moved away, he actually moved in with the rest of the pride. And you see where we can see this white female just off to the left. You can't really see it in the tall grass. You can just see his back through and a little bit of his mane through the grass. But he is with the pride. So the Ross males have moved off, but it seems to me he has joined up with the pride. And it's so interesting. Like myself and another ranger had a big discussion about it yesterday to try and find out what is why would he constantly tolerate these bigger males trying to push him out. And the biggest thing is for him is just he doesn't want to be separated from this pride. He knows that if he stays with them, he's most likely going to have a meal. But if he's by himself, it reduces his chances, and he might be successful. But the other time as well, I think he's been with the pride so long that he is fearful that if he moves away, that he might not be able to survive. Or that's probably the fear that he has in his mind. And that's why he's constantly sticking with the pride, even though he has to tolerate these males constantly trying to push him out and fight with him. Emma, you were asking a good question in regards to do the males or do the females fight as regularly as the males? And the answer is no, not as regularly. Like, you do sometimes see territorial disputes between different prides, but more often between males than that of females. I'm just having a look. It looks like this one female like lifted her head just above the grass. Just want to see, it might be that young white lion. Just want to, yep, there we go. You can just see the ears above the grass. Oh, head's down. But it is so interesting. It's like to see the whole movement of the pride. I'd like to just quickly draw a map just to show everyone more or less what has happened over the last week or two with these lions. So if I can open the map right over here. So initially, like when the show started, the lions were down in this part right over here on the reserve. So they were more in the southern part of the reserve, so right over here. And now and then they would do these loops, and then they cross out and they come back and they cross in. But then from there on, they started making all the way up north, like looking during full moon. They weren't very successful with a lot of the hunts, so they managed to move all the way to the top section of this reserve right over here. From there on, they made their way down again. They went all the way out this way, and they came back in again. And now they were around this area for the last, I would almost say, week. And now they've followed a herd of buffalo all the way through. And we found them right over here. So it's been quite a lot of movement around. And that young male, so just to give you an idea, those Ross males that we were talking about earlier, so their territory stretches across this whole area and even sections of this, the map that you won't be able to see that's been cut off, so we can show andBeyond and Ngala right over here. And there are quite a few, there would be some pressures from male lions from this area here, as well as from here, and then some male lions up here. So they need to make sure that when they do go on these territorial patrols, they need to go and make sure that they mark this whole area. And it's quite big. I mean, in regards to how big it is, it's close to 15,000 hectares, which is roughly 37,000 acres. And that's their whole territory that they need to go and patrol. And so they might not be with this pride for the next little while, just to go and patrol everything. But that's why this young male took his opportunity. He's not dominant yet, so he doesn't need to go and make sure that like he looks after his territory. So he's using that opportunity to stick with the pride as long as he possibly can before they start heading back. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, this young white male that that's with this pride as well. It'd be interesting to see what's going to happen to him, as well as the older male, the subadult that's with them. Because eventually, I mean, either when these males start getting more territory or when they start growing up, they will be pushed out of this pride. And it'd be interesting to see if they're eventually going to join up and maybe form their own collision. But because of the gap in the age, it'd be interesting to see what's going to happen. It's some interesting times up ahead. Chris, you were asking a very good question. How often do we see the Orphan Pride? So I don't know too much about the Orphan Pride. If it's because where I'm getting with that is, so this pride is called the Birmingham Pride because they originated out of a concession called Birmingham. However, they also referred to as the Orphan Pride because they are the ones that will go past Orphan Camp now and then return back onto andBeyond and Ngala. So I'm not too sure. With the Orphan Pride that you're referring to, do they also have the white lions in it? So then it might be the same, or is this a different pride that we're talking about? Because just to give you an idea, so where these lions are in comparison to the Orphan Camp, it's not even half a kilometer as the crow flies. So that's why it would be interesting to know if that's the case. Because I do know a lot of our viewers have asked about the Orphan Pride and said in regards to the white lions, they have seen some with the Orphan Pride, and we had a look at it, and it was the Birmingham Pride. So it would just be interesting to know if maybe there's a different pride that I'm not fully aware of, or it might be the same. For now, we're just going to spend another few minutes with them, and if they don't move, we'll then probably carry on and see what other animals we can find. But let's head across to Lauren with some vultures.
Yes, we are just south of Treehouse, and of course the vultures are here. I would imagine for the wildebeest carcass that is not too far away, the wildebeest carcass that the lions managed to take down. Now, this is a white-backed vulture, and of course the wings are open. It's time to dry. After being rained on and after being rather miserable, it's time to open our wings, dry out a little bit, and fix those feathers. They're both doing it. Now, white-backed vultures are very, very large birds. Not only are they large, they're very, very heavy birds. So they have to choose wisely exactly what trees they decide to sit in. If they choose a flimsy, lightweight tree, possibly a dead tree as well, when the bark can snap, then that's really not a good idea because it's not going to support your body weight. White-backed vultures can weigh around 5 kilograms. So sitting like that on a really loose and not so steady branch is not a good idea. So they have to choose the right trees, especially when they're nesting. I love the way he's just holding his wings open. Dry me, wind, dry me. It is rather funny. Now, of course, the whitebacks are normally the first on the scene. Teresa, you're saying is posing. Probably, actually. There's a good chance of that. Saying, hey, look at me, ladies. And also trying to stabilize. Looks a bit wobbly there. I don't think he's chosen the best branch, in my opinion, of all the branches around here. I'm not sure this tree was the best one. But generally, whitebacks are the most common vulture that we actually see out here. We get others, of course, but whitebacks, I would say, are the most common. They're the sort of most numerous and frantic at kill sites, at carcasses. They appear in great numbers. All of a sudden, there will just be whitebacks everywhere. And there's a sort of feeding hierarchy at carcasses when it comes to vultures. And essentially, the whitebacks are normally the first on the scene, and they're normally the most numerous. They're very noisy birds. They will hiss and frantically call at one another and mob. Odiza? Aziza. Yeah. You're asking, are they dangerous to humans? No. They're really, really not. I don't think a vulture would really harm a human. They do get very, very large in size. I think the lappet-faced vulture is probably the biggest vulture that we would see here. And they're very powerful. They do have very sharp talons and sharp beaks, but essentially they're not harmful to humans. If we were to maybe lay on the ground for a very, very long time and play dead, they maybe would swoop in to see if we really were dead and have a little peck at us. But essentially, vultures would not attack you. We also get the white-headed here. That's slightly rarer. We don't see the white-headed too often. We get the hooded. It's a very sweet vulture. It's much smaller than the whiteback. And we do also get to see the lappet face occasionally. So I'm going to head on south, see what's going on. I'm really hoping to see some hyenas. Potentially that's where Miss Ribbon is, because she definitely wasn't at the den. So as I bumble south, we are going to send you back across to Mr. Henry.
We have come up to Buffelshoek Dam, the northeastern corner of Djuma, where the hippopotami are hiding, along with everything else currently. The little one is under the tree there. And that tree was so alive about a month ago with weavers. And they've all dispensed with their breeding, mating, reproducing activities. You can hear a water thickney going psst. Also maybe hear the scimitar-billed wood-hoopoo. Laughing dove. And you can hear in the distance Levalence cuckoo. Croak, croak, croak. No, the hippos cannot breathe underwater. Absolutely not. Hippos are mammals and therefore must breathe above the water, and so that's why you see them coming up and you'll hear that's the hippos breathing out in much the same way that a whale does, I suppose. They can't stay under the water for nearly as long as whales, and nor can they swim in the same way that whales can. Also a gorgeous call of a black-headed oriole in the background, liquid. Right, let's go back to the lion kill now. Lauren has made her way down there and see if there's any action.
We had a jackal, I think this morning as well, but it's jogged off, light on its feet and nimble. I'm just having a look. You never know who's going to arrive at a carcass. I think obviously James popped in, but you never know. Oh, I see a sleepy cat. You get him from here, Davi, or do I need to reverse? Or potentially I need to go forward. Hold on, let me figure this out. That's the absolute worst location. There we go. That is a paw of a male lion, I think. Probably the same one that James had this morning. Wonderful 5 out of 5 views here, everyone. So they're still very much guarding this carcass. There's no hyenas on the scene yet that I can see. I also can't see fresh hyena tracks on the ground. I have a funny feeling the hyenas are busy somewhere else. I had a funny feeling Ribbon heard something last night and it wasn't the lions. And she ran off. She really, really ran off fast. And I think she was onto something. I just don't know exactly what she was onto. So I think the hyenas are busy somewhere else. And they actually haven't, well, they're not aware of this carcass. I was really hoping for some Djuma clan interactions. That's why I came down here. Let me just have a look at what's going on. One very sleepy lion. Good morning. A very wet sleepy lion. The jackal went this way. Is that the hooded in the tree? I'll need to get my binos out. Oh, I haven't brought my binos. I'm going to have to rely on Darby's camera. I left everything at home just in case it gets wet. Yes, this is a hooded vulture. We're on a roll with the birds. We had the white backs. And this is a hooded. It's much smaller. And it's not got that sort of tuft of feathers around the neck. It still has them, but it's not as prominent in the hooded as it is in the whitebacks. And you can see the feathers on the back of the head. It looks like they're wearing a little hood. Andrea, birds can still fly when their feathers are wet. It makes it tricky for them, of course, and that's why all of these birds are trying to dry out their feathers. But yes, they can fly when it is raining and when their feathers are wet. Because, of course, they can shake the water off, so they'll still be wet, but they won't be carrying that weight of the water. Of course, they can shake it off and they can still fly. They may not be able to fly as well as they can when they're completely dry, but they definitely can still fly. What is this vulture eating? Now, vultures, I think, have a bad reputation, similar to hyenas. Yes, they are scavengers, and I think it was the Jungle Book, if I'm not wrong, a good old Disney movie from the Jungle Book, that actually gave vultures a very bad reputation. They sit in the tree and they're like, hey, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Or they were having a conversation along those lines. And I'm sure it's a Jungle Book. And it just gave vultures a really, really bad reputation. But they're actually incredible birds. They really are. Just because they scavenge doesn't mean anything negative, just like hyenas. They're very smart to know that I'm not going to waste my energy trying to kill something and risk my life. I'm going to wait until something else kills something. Then I'm going to swoop in, be very brave, and try and see what little tidbits I can pick up. They have such incredible eyesight that they're actually able to see things happening on the ground from far off. And before you know it, they will arrive. It's very rare to have a carcass without vultures around. I often wonder, this is just a theory of mine, it's actually not proven, if vultures follow predators visually, mainly lions. Lions take down bigger prey than do leopards. And I often wonder if they always keep prides of lions or coalitions of lions in their sort of visual sight, and that's how they are so quick to arrive to kill sites. But that's just a theory, though. The hooded are very brave. They are not as numerous at kill sites as the whitebacks are. Sometimes you'll just see one or two, but they're very, very brave. They're quick, they're fast, they're light on their feet. So sometimes they'll actually run up to a predator, run, and try and steal whatever they can find. So I'm just going to poke my nose a little bit around here, see if we can see any signs of anybody else, and then we'll bumble on. But for now, we're going to send you guys across to James with a buffalo.
This is very cool. This is the same buffalo bull we had in the pan not far from here a few afternoons ago, and there's another one up front. So buffalo bulls making their way back onto Djuma, which is great. Really lovely news. This guy's now looking towards his friend. They both look a little uneasy. I don't know if that's the weather or if they're afraid of being savaged by something. Perhaps something has been trying to savage them in the night, aka lions. Just heard some strange sneezing off to the left. It's not human. What it was. I know Zaki is cool, isn't he? He's I'm not sure what it is about him that's so cool, but I always find that buffalo looks so individual. And he's a cool looking buffalo. He looks in very rude health. Although he's quite old, you can see the split in his boss. And obviously the oxpecker tickling his back. Yes, Sujal, his horns do look like a waxed moustache. And also he's chewing a piece of grass. This is always a nice thing to do in the countryside. We are now going to go across to the highlight of the day, which is, of course, Marcel's incredibly random fact of the day.
So Marcel was constantly telling me that he wants to do the fact of the day. So I'm going to hand this over and he'll tell you what our game plan is going to be from here on. You can see we're in the beautiful riverbed and he'll tell you exactly what we're going to do from here. There we go, Marcel.
Thanks, Nicky. Okay, so seeing that it rained this morning, I'll share 3 rain records. These are world records. So the 12-hour, the 24-hour, and the 72-hour rainfall record all occurred on a tiny island in the Indian Ocean, about 200 kilometers west-southwest of Mauritius, Reunion. And the 12-hour record was 1,144 millimeters of rain. The 24-hour record was 1,825 millimeters of rain. Both of these occurred in 1966 in January. And then the 72-hour record was 3,929 millimeter. And this happened in 2007. Yeah, that's quite a bit of rain. So the plan is now to continue along the riverbed, have a look for some leopard around the banks, hopefully see one.
Thank you. Get my hat back. All right, so on that note, let's go see if we can find some. Let's go see if we can find some leopard. You can see it's a beautiful morning just after the rain. Hopefully all the tracks that we see now are going to be fresh, so they won't be covered with rain and we can actually see them. And let's see if there's any sign of these leopard. Now what we're trying to look out for, so remember like we spoke about earlier with the Ross males and say, okay, they'll be moving around marking their territory. The same with these leopards. Both males and female leopards are territorial, so they need to go to their boundaries to mark it again, tell the other leopards this is my area, they're not allowed to get in here. So that's why we're going to start with the riverbed, because as soon as there's any fresh tracks, we'll probably be able to see as they cross over the river, or maybe even in the river itself. There is quite a lot of shelter, so they might even be laying down here one of the banks from this morning to get out of the rain. Monkey Mutant Boss, you were asking a question in regards to, do termites ever bite leopards if they do lay on the mounts? Now, to be completely honest, I would assume that it could happen, but you never really see that. Because I've seen quite a few leopards on termite mounds where the termites are moving down at the bottom, but it didn't seem like it was bothering the leopard. So on that question, I'm not too sure, but according to my knowledge, not that I've seen, but I'm sure it could possibly happen. So just in regards to a question with the termite mound, I have seen though in the winter time, or even on a cold day like this, that leopards could go and lay down in a termite mound, because often with termite mounds, there's quite a nice consistent temperature kept in, just below 40 degrees, I think it's around about 37 degrees Celsius, and so that heat is nice and warm. So often the leopards will go and lay down on top of those mounds just for that little bit of heat, and they can use it as a vantage point. The same with cheetahs, but in an area like this, very unlikely to find cheetah. They prefer more the open areas, but leopard on the other hand could be an opportunity. As we're driving, I'm looking up some of the bigger trees. You can imagine if there's a few hyenas around in the area and leopards do make a kill, how they'll take that kill and hoist it up into the tree. So looking out for tracks, looking up in the trees, and Marcel says he'll be spotting anything at the back. Rosemary, I heard you love the little wide road, the riverbed. It is beautiful, especially early this morning. So just to describe, because I want everyone just to feel more or less, or put you in the atmosphere that we are in at the moment. So just after the rain, there's this little damp feeling up in the air and the smell of jasmine. So I don't know if it's maybe one of the trees nearby that might only, like, you can smell it now, but it's like a wild jasmine smell. Also, you can smell that dirt in the rain. It's such a, and also now, like, as you go out of the river, there's like a little breeze blowing, so it's like a cool breeze, but still like a bit of humidity up in the air. So I'm wondering if we might get a bit of rain later on, but it is beautiful place to be driving in. And sometimes one of my highlights, especially because I do love afternoon game drives, is whenever you set up like a beautiful gin and tonic stop, or maybe like a coffee and a rusk, because I do love my coffee as well, is to come and set it up here and watch the sun setting over this dry riverbed. So we haven't seen anything yet, but we haven't spent a lot of time in the riverbed. Let's carry on and see if we can find anything up onto some of these bigger trees near the riverbed. So we're going to still carry on search. We'll let everyone know if we do find something. But let's get an update from James. And also, maybe let's ask him, how can he remember, or what was his highlights while driving in this riverbed when he used to be an andBeyond ranger here at Ngala?
I was never an andBeyond ranger. The company was called CC Africa at the time. So I guess I was a CC Africa ranger, but same thing. Very similar training process. My best memory of driving in the river. Sure. I don't know what it was. You know, what I do remember the most about that river is late afternoons and the way the light caught the big sycamore figs on the banks. And I remember climbing when I wasn't driving guests, I remember climbing the large-leaved false thorns or sometimes with guests, in a place called Hyena Camp, which is on the Timbavati there. Just this gorgeous forest of mahoganies and large-leaved false thorns and fig trees. I think that's probably my fondest memories of the river. There are lots though, really. Stunning place. We left our beefies, they went off into the bush. We'll try and go back that direction, I think, this afternoon and see what's happening over there. I'm irritated with those lions that they've decided to head off to the south. Gosh, I also can't think of that, Christo. Again, my mind starts coming up with hundreds of things. That classic one is that baboons and elephants get drunk on marula fruits. There's still lots of people that believe that. There was one person that thought woolly mammoths were still around. That was quite an amazing thing to have believed. Yeah, I need to think about these things. Anybody says, what's your favorite anything, or best or worst, my mind hits a kind of blockage. Think about that most ridiculous fact that people thought were true. I feel like there were hundreds that I've had to debunk over the years. Ah. Hello, Impala. If you have enjoyed the safari and you would like to carry on watching some interesting animal activity, the Djuma Dam Cam is live permanently, and currently there is a hippopotamus playing with a stick, apparently having the time of his life in the dam there. So if you want to go and watch some funny and amusing animal behavior, the hippo and his stick is a guaranteed source of laughter. And that's the Djuma Dam Cam. How do you find it? I don't know how you actually get to the Djuma Dam Cam. If you go to WildEarth.tv, I'm sure you'll find it there. Right, this chap's chewing his cud, which is making me hungry, so I think we'll go off and have some breakfast. Thank you very much for coming along on the drive today, for your questions and comments, especially for putting up with me for how long, or for the length of time that we were alone together. We'll see you this afternoon at 3:30.